I don't really have to. I think everybody's been there.
Good evening. I'd like to call the January 20th, 2022 voting session to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Colleen, will you please call roll?
Present.
Here.
Mr. Senzo,
Here.
Mr. King,
Here.
Mr. Moran,
Here.
Mr. O'Neill,
Here. Here.
Mr. Zaritsky.
He's here. He's on the phone. Here.
Okay.
Here. Mr. Hellesey, the executive session.
Yes, the board met briefly this evening in executive session beginning at 6:45 to 7 p.m. to receive information from the solicitor relating to an ongoing legal matter.
Before I do that,
I'm not going to read the entire decorum
I was going to say.
speech since there is folks are here that have been here and heard it. Just reminding everybody that if you are speaking, we are not requiring addresses to be read out loud. Just please provide your information to Ms. Kearns, and it will not be included in the minutes.
It's actually at the podium.
She has it at the podium.
Oh, okay.
For you.
Okay.
Dr. Perry.
Yes, so January is Board Appreciation Month, and each of you in front, I want you to notice that there's a sweatshirt there, a Central Valley sweatshirt. On behalf of the student staff of the Central Valley, I would like to thank our Board of Education for your support to the entire school community. At your seat, like I said, is a sweatshirt. It's a small token of our appreciation for all that you do. I know that having been the superintendent for 9 years and worked with this board, that your dedication to the students of Central Valley is unquestioned. And I truly appreciate everything you do for our students, for our staff here. And I know it's not always a job that comes with a lot of praise and thank you, but on behalf of our school community, I want to say thank you for everything you've done. So thank you.
Thank you. Public comments on agenda items.
Nope.
Okay, all right. The minutes to approve the voting session minutes from the November 18th, 2021. That would be found on attachment A. Number 2, to approve the voting session minutes from December 2nd, 2021, which would be found on attachment B. Any discussions on those two items?
That is a motion. Move.
Question?
Second motion.
Motion, Mr. Bloom, second by Mr. Ross. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. King?
Following bills and reports are submitted for approval. Pay bills. Confirm the December 2021 general fund payments in the amount of $1,264,969.73, attachment C. Number 2, to confirm the December 2021 cafeteria fund payments in the amount of $72,821.44, attachment D. Report. To approve the November 2021 Berkheimer report, attachment E. Number 2, to approve the December 2021 Berkheimer report, attachment F. Make a motion.
Okay, Mr. King makes that motion, second. Mr. O'Neill, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There is nothing under board policies. Mr. O'Neill, there's nothing, but do you have anything?
No, we have nothing.
Brings us to education. Mr. Ross.
One, to approve, confirm the release time, staff development requests. The conference location is located on the left-hand side. The individuals that will partake in these conferences is in the middle, and the dates on the right. 2, to approve an agreement with Hope Learning Center to provide psychological services for the district from January 3rd, 2022 to July 1st, 2022 at a rate of $600 a day. So moved.
Second.
I don't know who's second.
Tom did.
Oh, Mr. King, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Moab, anything?
Nothing under technology this week.
Mr. King, we're back to you with athletics.
Number one, to approve the following conditioning programs to run January 17th, 2022 to March 6th, 2022, at a rate of $10 per hour, up to 60 hours total. Shannon Sullivan, Bruce Herstein, Tim Casey, Bill King, and Mark Lyons. Number two, to approve the varsity cheerleading team to compete in Disney's Wide World of Sports in Florida, February 11th, 2022 through February 13th, 2022. Attachment G. Number three, to accept the resignation of Bradley Humble, boys varsity soccer coach, effective immediately. Attachment H. Number four, to accept the resignation of Tim Casey, girls tennis coach, effective January 3rd, 2022. Attachment I. Number five, to approve Central Valley Middle School swim team to practice at Hopewell Pool this spring pending approval of the Hopewell Area Board of Education. I'll make that motion.
I second Mrs. DeCenzo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Extracurricular, Mrs. DeCenzo.
To approve qualifying students to attend the FBLA State Leadership Conference in Hershey, PA from April the 10th, 2022 to April the 13th, 2022. I'll make the motion.
Okay, do I have a second? Mr. Ross, seconds.
And then
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And move into building and ground.
Yes, we're gonna go to building and grounds. Mr. Zaritsky, we're gonna go ahead and read for you if that's okay. And we're gonna start just with a presentation from Mr. Padilla from Crabtree, Rohrbaugh and Associates. Each of you should have a copy on your iPad as well. This presentation, I sent it out.
Turn the lights down. There he goes. There
we go.
All over it, Mr.
Thank you.
he goes. You're all over it.
Okay, thank you everyone for taking a few minutes. I wanted to present an update on the Center Grange project, both design, cost, and also schedule, and show you a little bit of some of the interior design concepts and some exterior elevations and so forth for the first time. So tonight what we're going to do is talk a little about where are we with our design process. We're going to talk a little bit about a budget, the updated to the construction cost estimate, and for the most part we're on schedule with what we had presented previously. So just kind of a high level, probably top of the list of something that has impacted design and cost is this first item. Just prior to the project starting and the geotechnical work beginning, the district, Dr. Perry, alerted us to some previous background information of fill that may have been brought to the backside of the site. We alerted that to the geotechnical engineers just literally the day before they started their testing. And they did, in fact, confirm that back part of the site has a significant amount of fill that was brought in. So the area that is impacted the most will be the classroom addition. The gymnasium footprint is not on a fill area. So between the geotechnical engineer, structural and civil engineering, there will be some soil stabilization that's going to be required for the project. We'll talk a little bit about the cost of that when we get a little bit later in the presentation. We've also had two reviews with the building code official, and one thing in particular that is unique to the geographic area and the most recent code implementation is a tornado shelter provision. And I think we talked a little bit about that last time. Code official was exceptional. He was very appreciative of us meeting with him early. We were all on the same page in determining the size of the shelter and what the requirements are. So that was pretty significant relief on our part to know that that was manageable. The water flow tests, also coordinated with the district and the municipality and the engineer, have all been completed, calculated, and as of yesterday, the engineers have concluded a fire pump will not be required. That's a pretty significant item. That would have been a $50,000 to $75,000 item if the water volume and pressure wasn't adequate to provide the fire protection system. So that was good news. Basically, because of the above items, we're comfortable finalizing the design development budget, and we're going to talk towards the end schedule about an Act 34 hearing. That was not required for Todd Lane because there were not significant additions on that building. When an addition exceeds 20% of the existing building, regardless of reimbursement through the state, Act 34 law still applies, and this project will require a public hearing. And I'm going to walk through the details of that a little bit. In the next 2 to 3 weeks, our interior design team will come out, meet with Dr. Perry, administrative team, some faculty and staff, talk about finishes, interior concepts and layouts, and also furniture placement, because there's a separate furniture package to outfit all of the new additional spaces. Our objective was to be complete with design development actually tomorrow, and we're on schedule to do that. So site plan wise, there are not significant changes to the design. The parking lot associated with the gym addition, keep in mind that is one alternate, has been reviewed with the municipality and got some feedback. Also, that was positive. We were also concerned earlier in the project that that could trigger traffic study. You get into off-site improvements and road widenings and things like that. So that has moved very well and favorable. There is a meeting coming up in February that Dr. Perry will coordinate with the soccer club and the civil engineer, get a better understanding of, make sure they understand what is happening with the fields. There is not a significant amount of dollars being allocated or work that's required other than what is being interrupted directly by moving the playground and the footprint of the gym and the footprint of the classroom. So we'll have that meeting here shortly, but there have been no changes to the site design. One of the increases in cost, the perk tests were performed on site as part of the geotechnical engineer, and they have to increase the basin slightly because of the perk rate of the soil. So not significant, but again, from a design perspective, everything on the site remains fairly consistent with what we'd shared previously. So here again is the existing floor plan of the building. And now in hindsight, seeing where the fill is located, there's probably a reason why these wings are staggered the way they are. It's a guess, but the area, the footprint of the classroom will most likely be, is the area that is most impacted. So now here's the further refined development of the addition, both additions, and you'll start to see, all doors, windows, toilet fixtures, casework, are laid out in each of these spaces. We've continued to review the program, making sure we've got everything covered. And again, that next level of effort is to talk about the interior finishes throughout the kindergarten wing and making sure there's some unity between each of the wings themselves. So here's a large-scale layout. This is what our interior design department has been working on in terms of laying out the furniture and equipment. This is preliminary. This is to be reviewed with the district admin team and faculty and staff, and we will be verifying this in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So there is a budget item for loose equipment in the cost of the project, and that is for the loose tables, desks, and chairs. So we also had to do this layout for the code official to satisfy occupancy count. So we'll be fine-tuning this over the next few weeks, and then also coinciding with the development of the furniture package that'll be necessary to provide the loose equipment. So the gymnasium, a little bit further developed. Again, this will be an add alternate, which will also coincide with the parking lot. If the gym alternate is accepted, the parking lot must be accepted also, so they will go in unison. We're now showing the bleacher capacity seating for 100 occupants. We have the vestibule designated and also now a secure vestibule essentially that'll allow you to have this gymnasium operate in the evening hours without having traffic go through the rest of the building with a set of doors heading back into the existing room. The restroom count is based upon the square footage and occupancy of the bleachers, so we've also reviewed this with the code official and they're satisfied that the fixture count is met. We talked earlier about a difference in height of the court in the gymnasium area, and when we analyzed the cost and saw there was very little impact to the heating and ventilation and cooling and lighting side and power, we thought that it's prudent to not only show the PIAA court footprint, but also to set the structure height at the PIAA height now. It was not a significant dollar cost, and to lower that structure will most likely be an issue years to come. So we're proceeding with the design of this to be both PIAA court for the footprint and clearances as well as the height, which means you could play PIAA volleyball in there if you elected to.
John, there's only the one family restroom, there's no men's and women's?
Yeah, the larger, if you come out of the gym and take an immediate left, those are large gang toilets, men's and women's, and the family is an occupancy requirement for the gym to have a separate space.
It says gym storage.
Yeah.
Just north of the gym storage are 2 large gang toilets.
Oh, those two, okay.
Yeah, the fixtures are kind of tiny.
Kind of like these ones out here.
Gotcha, just walk different direction, okay.
Yep.
John, could you go back to the previous, which one is the large group instruct, is that on the far right, left?
Far left is music.
Oh, music.
And if you extend the corridor of what the existing building is and walk down through the new corridor, at the very end, in yellow is the large group instruction.
Okay.
And again, we're just showing some seating layouts. We need to meet with the superintendent and admin team to decide what you really want to put in there.
There's also the 2 bubble classrooms are up there as well.
Which one's a support room?
The ones in the middle, the 4 in the middle.
4 in the middle?
Yes.
Yeah, OT, PT, speech, SGI, all of the support space. And each of the 2 support spaces are basically the footprint of a classroom, and there's an operable door between each of them. So they can open and close.
If we had to take the space, we could take the space.
How about storage? I know that's a major problem in all our buildings. You know, it's everybody looking for storage. Are we applying any new areas here for storage?
Basically, the gray areas are support and storage spaces. So the largest is to the left, down by the music wing. That's a fairly large storage area. And then the other, I would say service, that was something we coordinated with Ed and his team about having an MDF closet and also a office workspace. And then there's some additional storage throughout what's shown in gray.
In the old part, do we have still storage there also, or did we eliminate?
We haven't taken any. But it is, I mean, if you look at that classroom wing on the left existing, it's pretty lean and mean. There wasn't much storage when it was built.
We're gonna have to take the one area down by the faculty room, but then we didn't have to do that because we didn't have to put an egress.
We had the exit met
right
in other fashion, so.
At one point, there was an area we thought we were gonna have to take, but we didn't have to take it.
Jim, we had talked a couple different on the flooring. What flooring are you budgeting or
wooden
planning to get out?
A wood floor.
Wood floor, okay.
Okay, any other questions? And we can come back if something else pop.
One other thing in the gym, John.
Shoot.
For acoustics, noise, are we putting any type of acoustic to absorb it, sound in there?
Yeah, so it's, with the wood floor and painted CMU, it does get loud. The deck will be perforated and it has insulation running through it to help sound get trapped in there. And then there will also be some wall panels It will not be a quiet space. Gymnasiums are very difficult, but there will be some sound attenuation through surface applied wall panels and then the metal deck itself to try to help curb the noise. Okay, any other questions? So here again, as the two additions are shown highlighted in blue, we also have coordinated with civil engineers walkways and connectors. The gray area out of the gymnasium, you can start to see that loop come around and connect to the parking lot. So when parents, teachers, staff, community members leave that area, there's a continuous sidewalk that will take you all the way to that secondary entrance into the gym. And then we talked about another connector from the music classroom and the end of the new wing that will be fenced in, but there will simply be a sidewalk that will allow, on nice days, if staff wish to move through and cart access control, that'll help facilitate movement a little bit easier just to walk outside. So we added those connectors as last time. So here are a couple of the first renderings that we've modeled. Obviously to the left, you can see the existing area of the end of the kindergarten wing, and then that gray area is that vestibule connector. And I think we pointed this out. The reason why that they don't immediately come up, that 10-foot separation was critical for code compliance. One of the issues with the existing roof is the wood frame trusses. So we needed to have the addition, there's a 10-foot separation and a 3-hour barrier that's currently required for building code because of the wood construction in those trusses. But that's essentially the area of the kindergarten extension, and then you can see as we turn the corner, here's another view coming back, looking in the other direction. And actually I didn't point out, excuse me, keep getting these wrong. That access point will allow direct access for the kindergarten and all students to a relocated play field. Remember, we're moving the play field because that's where the addition is going to impede. So we're talking about relocating some of the equipment. The manufacturer that actually installed the playground equipment originally came out, looked at it. Some can move. And so we're designating this area, and then certainly can talk about adding some additional playground equipment as well. And again, here's the view from the other perspective looking back. And then here's the gym. You know, a gym at PIAA height is a large structure. That means the bottom clearance of any structural member has to be 25 feet from the floor. So that does raise the volume, but we think that there's more merit to building it in this manner than trying to reduce the height. Where that emblem is shown, Dr. Perry and I were talking earlier, it could be anything. We're just showing that since that designates kind of a secondary entrance, we might look at putting something there. So we'll come up with some other ideas. It could be as simple as that, but if you wanted to put a warrior symbol or something else there, there will be some site lighting, and that canopy will have lighting illuminating the entrance point in the evening as well. All of the materials, essentially, we're trying to match the brick and the ground face and some of the split face masonry. So we're trying to, as you can see from the structure on the left, we're trying to maintain that dark gray ground face masonry to continue along the base of all the addition, that accent band that goes through. So we've essentially tried to adhere as much to all the materials that are there for color and just consistency to try to make it look as part of the original building.
John, the tan area in between in the gymnasium there, is that painted or is that a brick or colored brick? What is that?
It's masonry.
Masonry.
It's just a different color masonry.
The only thing I'm looking at is least amount of maintenance possible, upkeep, when we build this, you know.
Yeah, the only metal really is the canopy. Everything is either a brick masonry or a larger CMU masonry, so just different color. So it should be very, very low maintenance in that regard. Okay, last time we talked about what are we doing to ensure that the budget has allowances for what we've continued to see in the market with other projects being bid. I would say it's fair to say the situation has not yet improved. We're still continuing to monitor bids that are being received, make adjustments. The supply chain issues and availability of certain materials. I shared with Dr. Perry earlier, I was at North Star earlier this afternoon to talk about a large HVAC project the district wants to do with some of their ESSER funds this summer, and we essentially talked them out of it. We're going to design the project and be ready, but leadway times for rooftop equipment is 20 to 24 weeks. And if you're trying to do all of that work in one summer, you're not going to get it. So we're going to develop the project, and if you have a very short construction duration, which Center Grange is not, but if you're going to try to jam everything into one summer, this is not the summer to do it. We're just concerned about the availability of these materials. So we're continuing to adjust the budget slightly, but having the code assessment behind us, there was something that the code reviewer did require, and that is a third-party peer review. So there will be an additional service for the structural engineer. We have to hire a third engineer to review the work of the tornado shelter. It's just simply a code requirement that the code official is going to ask for. So the geotech budget adjustment, again, there's an allocation on the top where it says soil stabilization. They are going to be RAM aggregate piers. And basically, we've gone through 3 analyses to determine what's the most cost-effective scenario. But before I explain that, I have to point out that while that's a $275,000 increase to the budget, removing all of the fill and bringing in exported fill and engineered fill was approaching $500,000. However, the fact that we now know this, we will be able to include this in the bidding documents. And that's really a credit to everyone and the administrative team for bringing it to everyone's attention, because when these kinds of issues are discovered during construction, it's not competitively bid. We're going to get hit with a change order, and the cost would probably be almost double that. Now, we would negotiate a better price, but the issue is it also causes delay. So by now, virtue of what everyone knows, that information will be in the bid documents, which will require the bidders to bid that work competitively. Change order is a whole different animal. So on the right-hand side, you'll see the January budget. Left-hand side is what we presented in September. So there is an increase to the budget of $275,000 for these RAM aggregate piers. There'll be 24-inch diameter holes that'll be drilled on a pattern determined by the geotechnical engineer. They will go down to a depth till they reach refusal. They literally ram stone into the ground to densify the soil. That was the fastest and most cost-effective solution to stabilize the ground. Now, the fact that there's a tornado shelter in that classroom as a required of the code also contributed to that a little bit, but that's a requirement that must be met. The other item highlighted in color, the civil engineers, as I pointed out earlier, they made a slight budget increase of about $50,000 or $60,000. They have to increase the excavation area of the basin because of some percolation rates, not significant. However, if you look at the alternates, some of these have moved downward. The heat pumps is slightly down, access control is the same, AV throughout the class, the existing classrooms are the same. But I want to point out the fire alarm. That was something that we initially proposed as an alternate. It now must become part of the base bid because it's simply going to be required. But the good news is, initially the engineers felt like they were going to have to make major modifications to the entire building where we had $135,000 budgeted. What they now believe, actually, and the code official has agreed, is worth about $27,000 to replace the head end equipment. So all the strobes and devices, pull stations are appropriate and they can stay. They have to do some control side. So that budget item went down. AV system in the gym actually went up. I think the engineer's number was just low. Knowing what we've done at Todd Lane, they just made an adjustment. There was nothing requested more. I believe just that their estimate was not where it should have been. Everything else is essentially the same, but I want to point out escalation. The previous slide talked about escalation. we are carrying $400,000, $415,000 for escalation. That'll be realized on bid day. Basically, what we're saying is we feel like we have adequate dollars per square foot, but there will continue to be escalation to the midpoint of construction, and that's what that number is to help cover. That was in the original budget, and it stays unchanged moving forward.
Yes.
Can you ask John if escalation factors is a separate line item from contingency money?
He wants to know if escalation factors is a separate line item from contingency money.
It is actually. So escalation is for increased cost of materials availability. On the next line item for construction-related soft cost, in that $1 million is construction contingency.
Contingencies included in that next line item, the $1 million, 19,000,
And it represents roughly 3%. So between the escalation,
and it's approximately 3%.
yep. So it's about $700,000 in those two categories to address. Construction contingency is for unforeseen conditions. The biggest issue was that soils issue, and I think now we have a handle on it, and the bidders will be aware of it. So
Been much worse had we not.
it would have been 1.5 to 2 times the cost. While the cost is significant, the delay during construction would have been even a bigger exposure. So, really, from a base bid perspective, with the alternates from September to January, 11.3 to roughly 11.6 for those two main line items above. We have added 2 additional alternates. If the board does not elect to construct the new gymnasium, Ed kind of brought to the team's attention, we really ought to replace the existing AV system in the existing cafeteria and gym. So that's that alternate. Again, that'll be a board decision whether you elect to do that or not. And then there's some paving improvements that the civil engineer has identified. Not critical, but as part of the project, particularly if the gym's accepted and there's a whole new parking lot, to do a slight overlay in the bus area would be beneficial cost-wise. You'll get the biggest bang for the buck. So that is an additional alternate that we're going to develop. We'll assess these alternates on bid day and share with you where we feel that they are, if there's a good value or not. If the board took everything, that's an adjustment of approximately 11.3 to 11.76 million. But again, there's $1.5 million easily just in alternates. So that's the budget impact. The 2 big takeaways are the site and the stabilization issue.
The FF&E that you have in there, does that include any tech-related items for the classrooms?
We may have grouped that together. It's a lump sum item of $155,000, but we have a separate detailed budget where I believe we did allocate separate monies for AV and tech.
Thanks.
And as we wrap up design development, we're going to want to fine tune that with Ed and the admin team as well. Anyone have any questions about the budget?
Go ahead, George.
Yeah, is our budget for clerk of the works in this number?
The clerk of the potential clerk of the works is in our soft cost.
Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry, Dave, go ahead.
Sorry. The heat pumps probably represents about 8% of the total budgeted amount. And, just looking at that, how much or what percentage of that do you think is going to be used to replace the existing heat pumps?
All of it.
All of
them.
All of them.
Yeah, that number represents all the existing heat pumps would be replaced.
And those, at this point, are what, 13, 15 years old?
15, 16 years old.
They're already starting to fail, and 12 to 15 years is about
They're about
standard.
So we would replace those regardless of whether we did any renovation or not, right?
You will be replacing these as they fail.
So we more likely would have to replace them.
Yes, we would just do them individually as they break, and now we're just gonna replace them.
Okay. One other thing with maintenance, when you had it up there, in between each wing, I can't remember what we talked about before, John. What's going to go in there in between each wing, for lack of not wanting to have maintenance in like grass, whatever? What are we putting there?
We still have to develop a design alternate for a hard surface scenario that we have not presented to the admin team yet.
Talked about doing something that's going to eliminate having to go back there and landscape, cut grass.
Right, that's what I was after, right? Now, will that affect the cost of this total that we have up here now?
Yes, we do not have the dollar value. We haven't designed it, nor do, I mean, it could be grass and zero cost. We'll develop an alternate.
How about that as an alt bid? So here's your options.
Yeah.
Similar to what we did with Todd Lane, if you recall, some of the landscaping around Todd Lane, specifically that back hillside, where we were talking about going in and putting a wall back there, so on and so forth. So they'll design some alternative, and we'll see what the cost is to do it.
And we'll be back to present what that might look like.
Just a question, did we learn anything from our Todd Lane build versus what we're going to do here that we maybe didn't do there that we should be doing here?
In terms of courtyard?
Anything in that we maybe,
I would say absolutely. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I can tell you that when we go to negotiate a furniture contract, like, we'll have lots of discussion about what's gonna happen if this project's not on time, where that's getting stored, who's paying for
Owns it.
those types of things like that, absolutely. So there's probably 10 different things that I personally have learned from the last project that we did.
John, with the pilings that are going to go into the ground in the soil that's the field that's there, once it's in and packed, et cetera, and the building's done, let's just say we have some shifting or cracking in classrooms. Whose responsibility? Does that fall back onto the contractor?
Well, during construction, the geotechnical engineer will have to observe and certify that the contractor is doing it correctly. So there's several steps in place and measures to avoid that issue. I don't know that anyone can guarantee that there won't be any settlement, but all those precautions taken to ensure that it's installed correctly should minimize that.
So
And there are no cracks anywhere visible now, and there's not, like, when you look at that, just the general topography, there's no visible sign of any significant deterioration.
any contractor work that was done at Todd Lane with regards to like the parking lot paving, any of that stuff, we had the engineers come out and watch them do the work. And then obviously one of the advantages of the clerk of the works is the clerk of the works would come out, watch the work, and then we would get reports on everything they did, making sure that, it was compacted correctly, there was enough cement or whatever the case may be, to oversee those things.
Okay, with all that said, and I appreciate that and understand that, but let's just say I want to play devil advocate, we do have, who's it fall back on? Is it back on the district to take care of that and pick it, and to make it right? Or is it the contractor that maybe put it in and didn't do it maybe right? Where does that fall? Because I'm concerned about, that land that we got to drill down into where the fill's at. If it does settle, and we do have some, on the outside with bricks, concrete, et cetera. In the classrooms, if it does settle, whose responsibility will it fall back on?
Like I said, it's going to depend on what we determine to be the cause. If it was an installation issue, it would be the contractor. If it's a design issue, it could be the geotechnical engineer, it could be the architect. I mean, it could be the structural engineer. It'll depend on what the cause is determined to be, but I'm fairly confident. The fact that we know this before construction, all those measures will be put in place to minimize that.
The building as it currently sits on similar soil.
Oh, that wasn't virgin soil that it's sitting on now?
No, so that's whenever I got that information with regards to when they built Center Grange, that there was an issue with the ground, and they didn't know it until they already started the project. And then they had to go in and put special footers in that increased the cost of the project, delayed the project. It was a major ordeal. That remedy is currently where our building sits now. They're doing the same remedy to the building before we start the addition, knowing that currently exists, that's how that ground exists.
Okay.
But as he said, there's no guarantee anything.
The last alternate on the right that I want to just point out, because there's no cost shown for it, as a result of what we're continuing to see in the steel industry, projects that have been awarded as long as 6 months ago are having significant issues with getting steel bar joists. So our structural engineers, and we're doing this on a number of projects, they will be designing an alternate structural system for the roof. One will be steel beams. You would think if steel's an issue, why would a beam be less costly? It's because it's more available. So we are going to give the contractors the option to either install steel bar joist, open web steel, or use steel beams. That way on bid day, we can determine and let the contractor determine based on their availability and what's the most cost effective. If we don't do this, we will hear it early in construction, we can't get bar joists. So this is a precaution on our part to give the contractors the ability to bid either one and try to not to delay the project. Now, this is not summer construction. This is well over a year, but still some bar joists have exceeded 35, 40 weeks. So that's something we're going to do as a precaution, what we're seeing in the supply chain. Okay, so last piece here is the Act 34 hearing. Again, this was not required for Todd Lane because the additions did not exceed 20%, but with the gymnasium addition, this will. So now that the design development budget's established, we're pretty firm on the budget where everything that we know, we will start to prepare a booklet and essentially, along with the financial advisor, the administrative team, we'll prepare this Act 34 booklet. There will be an advertisement that is required. The advertisement must be placed 20 days prior to the hearing. We conduct the hearing, and then there's a 30-day waiting period that the board can't take action, but technically you're not going to be taking action because this is not a reimbursable project anyway, and the state's not reimbursing projects right now. It's a fairly straightforward process. The board will be accepting and adopting a resolution on the maximum building construction cost. So through this Act 34 process, we will develop what that number is, and it is determined by the state based on the construction cost. On bid day, we cannot go 8% over that particular number, not renovations, not site work, but just the new building. So we'll be working on this now. We're thinking, Dr. Perry and I talked earlier, probably early March will be the time to have the hearing. We originally did have in our schedule to have the hearing in early February, but we didn't have the soil stabilization issue resolved and some of these other items with the fire pump. And there's a danger of putting a number out there too early, so we didn't want to do that. We're more comfortable now with what we know to produce the booklet, have the hearing. So we're still looking at bid release early April, receive bids in May, and hopefully we get favorable numbers. We're going to walk the board through when all the numbers come in, the value of the alternates. If we see something way out of whack, we may very well say, that is at such a significant premium, I think you should not take it. If it's the heat pumps, scenario, then you'll have to determine you're going to be replacing them systematically, perhaps as they fail. But we're going to guide you through that process to get to a bid award that construction can start sometime in early June. That was highlighted the design, the cost, and schedule. Anyone have any other questions or comments? Concerns?
Appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll be back probably next month talking about the hearing and the cost in a little bit more detail.
You heading back tonight?
I am. Got a meeting tomorrow morning.
Be safe driving back.
We'll do. Thanks. Thanks, John. Seeing everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Be careful. I'll talk to you.
George, please.
Okay. So number one, to approve confirm the following building usage requests pending final approval from the superintendent. regarding the review of the organization's health and safety plan as well as the liability waiver sign-off. Chart, you see the building, the organization, the date, and the purpose of the use of the building. I so move. Oh, George.
I'm on the record.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Senzo seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Bloom, personnel.
Yes, we need to approve the retirement of Kathy Faust, time gift teacher effective January 21st, 2022, attachment J. To approve the resignation of Kimberly Weber, paraprofessional, effective January 1st, 2022, attachment K. To approve the resignation of Julia Bender, cafeteria general worker, 4¼ hours, effective December 12th, 2021, found in attachment L. To approve Bailey Bungard as a professional at a rate of $13.50 an hour in accordance with the CVEA agreement, pending receipt, review, and acceptance of all clearances, effective January 21st, 2022. To approve the resignation of Alan Chrisman, cafeteria general worker, 3¼ hours, effective January 7th, 2022. And to terminate employee number 1857 as per the probationary period clause of the collective bargaining agreement between CVSD and the CVESP, PSEA/NEA, effective January 4th, 2022. I so move.
Okay. Mr. Moat seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Finance, Mr. Ambrose.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Number one, to approve the adoption of the preliminary general fund budget for the 2022-2023 school year, which includes revenues of $40,757,708 and expenditures of $39,748,784. The budget represents a 2.77 mil increase, which takes us as a district to 67.42 mils. Even with the 2.77 mil increase, we are still third from the bottom in Beaver County. If you look at the top end of it, I think there's 8 or 9 school districts that have higher millage, particularly when you look at 3 schools that have millage of over 80 mils. So I so move.
Mr. Moat seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment? Dr. Perry.
I meant to bring this up during athletics. Exit interviews because of the weather Monday have been moved to this upcoming Monday at 1 p.m. on January 24th. It'll be girls soccer, football, boys golf, cross country, girls tennis, girls volleyball. And like I said, those are scheduled for 1, and Sam will be putting out a reminder email to everybody.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Board members, Mr. Bloom.
Yes, I went to job interviews at the VOTEC on Tuesday. We are trying to replace Lisa Karen. She was a health occupation instructor. Having trouble finding qualified candidates for that position. We interviewed 1 candidate Tuesday. We have another coming on Monday. We're trying to get 3 or 4 more candidates, so we have a field of candidates to choose from instead of just going with a solitary candidate. So I'll keep you abreast to that.
Thank you. Mr. Ross?
Nothing.
Nothing. Mrs. Senzo? Mr. O'Neill?
You got nothing to say.
Mr. King?
Yes, I would like to thank Mr. Casey, who's retiring. I appreciate his leadership and his dedication to the district, and I think we should send him a letter of
Definitely.
He's done a great job.
Definitely. He will be missed.
Nice gentleman.
Mr. Moat?
Just wanted to tell Mrs. Park and her staff, great job with the bocce game yesterday. I didn't get to stay for the whole thing, but it's just always nice to see that unified sports program thrive, so it's fun to watch.
Mr. Ambrose?
Nothing.
Anything? No?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. I just have one thing. I just want to wish Mrs. Faust congratulations and good luck on her retirement, and thank her for her dedication to her students and the district. I'm sure she is definitely going to be missed. And on that note, do I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Ambrose, second, Mr. Moad. All in favor? Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
All right, George, I'm gonna hang up unless you got something else.